Sounds like a good intro to a podcast.
Let's
Welcome
go.
back, Alchemist. This is the Alchemist Nation Podcast. Myself, Gualter Amarelo, Michael Schein, Mitch Jaworski. Mike, bring us in, brother. What's the whole point of
So,
all this?
well, for me personally, it's massive income from passive income.
Mitch Jaworski, how do we get it?
You got to organize and collect.
Right, because the whole point is not to work, it's to generate income.
My
Judy
favorite,
Walsh.
my favorite, sorry to interrupt, but that is I was at a retreat this weekend and I was thinking, they said, name something that someone said that impacted your whole life. And I thought of you, Gualter, because I went to that meeting 7 years ago and you had a banner and you said the words, the point is not to work, it's to generate income. And like a light bulb went off in my head. And it also, I've never been I've worked hard when I had to, like graduating law school, but I've never been one of those rise and grind type people. So when you said that, it just gave me permission to say, yeah, I don't need to work hard it's just to generate income. So if you could generate income without working hard, yeah, so credit to you. Point is not to work, it's to generate income. So there you go.
So
Sorry.
this
I
is a
digress.
perfect segue into Judy Walsh. So Judy came to us as a grinder. She's working a full-time job. She's doing these single-family flips. And Mike, you were actually the one who brought her in. You snuck her into the community. You said you might want to come and show up and do
Yeah.
some of these calls, some of this woo-woo stuff, this real estate
Yeah.
thing. And Judy kind of
Judy,
sat on the outside for a good, I don't know, about a year before she really started engaging and jumping in. So Judy, what was that transition like?
So, it was really interesting. So I had met up with Mike to close on, I think it was a refinance or something. I think we met at like a Starbucks inside of a Target, somewhere in between wherever we were going and coming from,
yeah,
wherever.
I
We had the
remember
lucky
that.
pen, so that was all good. The
Yeah.
only pen I use now because you should always be closing. Um, so we were talking about, scaling and getting into other things and catching up. And you introduced this community to me, and I started jumping on the Saturday calls. And, in the beginning, I just was really just kind of taking in information and finding like, I was kind of more of an observer, and it took me a while. I don't know why. I think just one week something must have clicked where I was like, I really should get on a call and talk to you. And when I did that, and you very quickly went through, what I have for equity, what's working for me, why do I want to do flips again? And when you said, when you buy a multifamily, you pay yourself an acquisition fee, and then you have a better asset. Like, why wouldn't you do that? And I thought, acquisition fee, who knows about that? That's crazy. So I was like, well, that's a really good point. And whereas my first flip went really well and my second flip was less wonderful, I learned a ton from them. But I thought, that sounds really good to me to not continue only to do that or to do that, to really move towards this. So I started thinking and listening differently. And it just kind of evolved to really wanting to join the mastermind and getting into a position where I could do that. And then the opportunity came up to lend with you and join the mastermind. And that's when I really feel like every week something different clicked for me. And I could picture myself doing this. I think that's the key, is you have to be able to picture yourself in the short term, not just in the long term when let's wait till you have a giant down payment. Let's wait until you don't have anything else you need to do with your money, which I think is what a lot of us who work a traditional job and have been trained the traditional way, like kind of have that marching order, like wait until you have this, and then you need a huge reserve, and then you need this, and you need that. And it's like, well, I'll be dead before that happens. So it was really kind of nice to hear, people talk about how they're doing these things, and, just really, it's a great community in terms of the support and the ideas. And my mind is blown constantly with just different ways to look at how you can do things. And so I went from that mindset to being, now I have a plan for the next year to be doing at least quarterly, probably more often, acquisitions, and stepping from one to the next to the next to the next by doing the refinance and pulling things out, and just doing it. And some of it I don't even know how I'm going to do, but I know the questions I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask you if I'm asking the right questions. And I see it as way more possible than I did in the beginning. So thank you, Mike, for
Yeah.
making that suggestion
You were
because it was
you
probably the
were
best suggestion.
you were easy to convince, because I remember our first closing, we just started talking about investing, and you jumped on Bigger Pockets and said how amazing that was. And I said, well, if she likes Bigger Pockets, then Alchemist Nation uh, would be amazing. So yeah, it's easy. It's
It's
cool.
funny because I remember the conversation. So Judy, something you don't know, and I think a lot of people don't know, me, Mitch, Mike, some of the other coaches, we actually talk about you guys a lot behind your backs. So this may sound mean or shocking, but Mike was like, dude, this woman, Judy, she closed with me. I'm gonna make the introduction, but she's really like got the mindset. She really wants to grow. She really is like, she's actually an investor. Like she really has that mindset. I mean,
Yeah.
is it okay if I introduce you to you? And I was like, dude, like, yes, I trust your filter, Mike. You're very good at identifying whether somebody's going to be doing something in the future or not. And Judy, I remember the conversation with you is one I had with a lot of people who do flips. It's every third flip, you basically worked for free. You got to go pay the taxes for the government, and that really hurts. When you get into multifamily, it
Wow.
becomes that depreciation schedule you stack up actually means you don't have to pay taxes to the government, and then the acquisition fee frees you, right? It feels
Mhm.
like we stole that from the syndication world. They pay themselves a fee when they do all this gathering of people's money. So why can't we pay ourselves a fee as investors? It's our own stuff. We did
Smart,
the work, right? If you're going to
smart,
scale up,
smart, smart, smart.
you have to pay somebody anyway. You have to pay a staff member to go and do all that work. So you pay yourself until you can afford that staff member. Mike, you've been doing real estate for, I don't know, actually a very long time. I don't want I don't want to give away your age.
Wait a sec. We know this story. I think like 2003, I bought one property, but then we didn't buy another one till 2016. So, but yeah, stacking up. But I did go to a lot of closings in Mass, Rhode Island and Connecticut. And so I was just driving around, and I said, I feel like listening to Bigger Pockets would be better than listening to what the Patriots are doing on sports radio. And so Judy and I bonded over Bigger
Yeah.
Pockets, but she actually took the next step and went to their Bigger Pockets annual meetup, and I was like, "Whoa, this person is serious about this." So yeah, that was very impressive, Judy. Yeah.
Oh,
So, Judy, I
thanks.
know Mike's story of how he got in. How did you get into your first real estate deal? What did that look like for you?
So it's interesting because my first one actually wasn't the one that I closed with Mike. It was way back before my son, who's now 21, was born. And I was married at the time. We bought a two-family in Providence, and it was marketed as right outside of Federal Hill. So it sounded really great. Right outside was a little bit of an exaggeration. Anyway, long story short, we did everything wrong. It was a two-family. We got there for the closing. The constable was there evicting the tenants. We should have pushed the closing, but both
Wow.
realtors wanted to go ahead with it, and we were like, I guess it's okay. We'll be fine. And anyway, it was the biggest cleanup disaster I've ever seen. The tenants did fortunately leave. They left their things in the driveway for a day. We said, a dumpster's coming tomorrow. You've got to get it out of here. And they did. Fortunately, the conditions were disgusting. There were bags of dirty diapers up on the upstairs fire escape, and therefore rats. And there was food in the oven, and therefore cockroaches. And everything was
Wow.
sticky.
Wow.
Everything was sticky. I used more bleach than I have ever seen in my life, but we got it nice and clean. We painted it, we cleaned everything up, we did what we needed to do to fix up the floors, and we put washer dryers in. No, they were not coin operated. Everybody rolled their eyes at us, and somehow they didn't like kill us with the water bill. They were very good about that. But anyway, I learned a ton from that one. And then when my son was born and I was driving back that way I would be the one to stop in, to change a battery in the smoke detector or pick up the rent check because I don't want to wait for you to mail it or whatever. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't know that I want to do this, with a baby in the car. I just don't know that I want to do this anymore. So we sold it and we did pretty well. And then I didn't do anything until I met you and I bought that rental in Narragansett and did that model with the student rentals and
Nice
the
job.
weekly Airbnb in the summer. And I was obsessed. I was like, this is amazing. And so I did that. And then I did another one of those, which I sold a couple years later. And then I kind of stopped again. And I think I just got so enmeshed in, like, when you're like, I'm the only parent in the household, right? So I've been divorced for a long time. And you just get so enmeshed in people's lives. And I just got so enmeshed in like my own job and my career and what I'm doing for them that I just kind of told myself I didn't have time to do any more than the one I already had. And, you know, hindsight's 2020, can't go back. But at this point, then I took another like weekend mentoring program and got all jazzed up to do flips. So I did the two flips, both in South Kingstown. And the first one was fairly successful, I would say. It was an older house, like 1910. Really, that's like an unraveling sweater sometimes when it comes to the repairs. You think you know what you're getting into, and then all of a sudden it's more. So that one, I fortunately,
Mike, why is that? Mitch, you gotta guess why it's always more repairs than you expect.
First of all, I don't even want to get involved in this because the problem is I'm really good at sharing that and almost like giving like that variance. But every time I do it, everyone is like, "You're so negative," and I'm like, "No, I'm right, is what I
no,
am.
you're right.
Like
Because
I'm effing right." And it's just like it's no different than the deal I just did with Mike and Zach. I'm like, I don't care that I know there's probably going to be an extra 100K, right? Because there's so much spread on this deal, it doesn't matter. But I'm not going to say
right,
that because if I do, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
manifesting that
Thank you.
100K." Like
I,
no.
this office
right.
that
But
this
you're
office that I'm in, 1905 house, converted down to the studs when I bought it, and we made it beautiful. You've all been in here,
Yep.
and I had no issues, came in under budget, and I guess the only thing we did was we did spray and insulation, but instead of regular fiberglass because it's 2x3 construction instead of 2x4 because it was 1905, so there wasn't enough room. So,
Yeah, I
but
think it's a matter of if you expect to gut it and redo all the electrical, you
yeah,
have to expect that, right, with
I
these
think it's
older
like anything
houses. But
else.
for some reason, with the inspection and with the contractor that came through, they felt like, no, we can update this, this, and this, but we won't need to redo the whole house. And I had enough of a spread. I bought it well, so that was good. So I still ended
that's
up
good.
making like 60 grand on the house, even though it went double budget. Thank God. But I was like, I think that only worked out because I was a witch with the timeline. Like there was the first day, the electrician decided he couldn't do the project. He didn't have time, so he left the job. And they're not easy to find in South Kingstown. I somehow found another one. And then there was another couple people who had issues with the timeline. And I was just, every day, this is the day it's going on the market. You need to make sure that it's ready. Like this will be done on this day. And we did lose maybe 4 days out of the month, but I think we were done and back on the market in 5.5 weeks. And that's the only reason I made any money. Because the next
Amazing,
one, which was an
amazing.
easier one, it was like 1960 or 70, like a raised ranch, none of the
Old
very
stuff.
scary, like knob and tube plaster type
Yep.
of situation that you have with the really old houses. And I thought, oh, this is great. It's cosmetic. Um, should be pretty easy. And I made two different mistakes on that one though. I believed the ARV and in my gut, I really didn't think it was right. And I should have gotten it for a lower price. And I was just so excited with the momentum and so confident that I could still do an even faster timeline because look how great I did on that one. If I had listened to myself, I wouldn't have bought that one. And I lost like 60 grand on that. So it was an
You're even.
education, but like,
You broke even.
yeah, I did. But I mean, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And that's, I tell myself that. But then I was kind of shell shocked and I didn't do anything again for a while. So now I'm back ready to go. And I just sold the one that I had left in Rhode Island, renovated that and sold that. So that went well. And now I've got a verbal accepted offer on a multifamily in Cleveland after 2 trips out there. So I'm
Nice
ready to get
job.
back on the horse with all the learning that I've had and just
Well, I
keep
will.
listening to you guys.
I will say that I think that's awesome, a great lesson for anybody listening that you were quote unquote a witch with the time because um, subcontractors will take advantage or go to other jobs or do whatever they do unless you make it clear right off the bat that we're not going to be, we got to be in and out. And I've had, I've seen both the type that disappear and the type that stay on it and they're super
Yeah.
loyal. And so, yeah, it
Oh yeah.
was great on
Yeah.
the
I mean,
first one that you stayed on them,
I typed it up on a like a calendar with what should be happening every day, and I ran it by them. I'm like, does this seem right to you? Is there anything that needs to change? And then every day I would check to see did that thing happen or not. And there were some things that had valid reasons not to, and there were some things that didn't. But I feel like before they even start, that's something I'm always going to do. Like, this is what I think should be happening every day. Are we on the same page? And then check the box that it actually happened that day. And I think people didn't believe, I don't think they believed me. They were like, well, it always takes this amount of time. I'm like, well, no, then this isn't going to be, we can't do this then. This can't work because it needs to happen. And I would tell each of them what my daily carrying cost was. I was like, it's X amount per day on this. And I put in an earlier on time, like an on time under budget bonus for them. Like, it was small, but
Oh,
and
amazing.
nobody hit
Amazing.
it. But I thought they would try, I thought they would at least try.
Yeah.
So I'll still do that, and maybe somebody will hit it one day, but that was kind of the fun part. I felt like that was successful, and I like when things are successful. The thing that wasn't fun and the thing I won't do again is at the end, I thought I would save some money and do some of the last minute, like, touch up painting and do that myself. And like, when you're tired and rushing and like, it's the last thing you should be doing. You just factor it in, let somebody else finish it off, let it look professional. And not that I don't do a good job, but I was like not in a good headspace when I was doing that. I was like, this was stupid. I should not
It's
have done
funny
that.
because contractors are known for doing 95% of the job, and then the last 5% they usually leave, like the molding in the kitchen wasn't
Mhm.
done, and then
Yep.
they forgot the caulk around the sinks or the moldings, and so those little like painting that one room that kept getting forgotten. The bathroom is usually
Yeah.
the one that they
Yeah.
forgot to paint, or that back
It's funny.
bedroom. It's like
Yep.
the doorknobs are notorious. They still have the original doorknobs. They never switched out the doorknobs to the new all matching brushed brass or brushed nickel. Like, so those are things we now have a fix it guy, a cleanup guy who comes in and does
Oh,
those because
that's a
the main guys just
great
never
idea.
think to
Great
do that.
idea.
So
Yeah, that's
the
really
the
smart. Like
final
the punch
punch
list
list.
guys. Yeah.
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 Nice.
But it shouldn't be you, right? Especially at scale. I know the property you're looking at now, I think is 11 units, the one that you got soft
It
committed
is.
under agreement.
Yep, it's 11 units in an area of Cleveland that's right on the border of Shaker Heights, which is kind of an up and coming, really nice area. There's a few others on the street. I felt really good about it too because the agent also is an investor and he owns something on that street. So that kind of spoke to me as well as far as like his knowledge of the rents and things like that. So we have contractors going in with two different, like, it's like a handyman type contractor, and then there's a contractor going in to give me estimates, firm estimates. I have rough estimates, but I'll have those within a couple of days, and just talking to a few different lenders to see who I'm going to work with because I'm keeping my reserve for a change instead of throwing all my money into this one because I'm not going to live poor because I'm investing. Like, I need to keep my money in the bank and use as little of it as I can and have it there for when I need it to cover things like maybe the timeline is longer or maybe something was over. So it's a
I
different
mean,
way to
just
look
keep
at
it
it,
there for the sake of keeping it there. That's one of the
right?
things that
Just
that we're
keeping it.
shifting. We're shifting the mindset in our community of like, hey, it's okay to have cash. Cash is an okay position. It's actually part of the positioning that you should have. Go ahead, Mitch. I see you're like a dying to say something.
There's a couple points to like reiterate for the audience, I think. But before we touch back on that, I'm going to add my piece with this too. Is yeah, because same thing. Like I was always putting my money into deals, and then a year ago, a year and a half ago, I'm like, all right, I'm not doing that anymore, and strictly use private money. And then all of a sudden, Pennsylvania comes along, and I'm plowing all my money into a deal again. I'm like, how did this happen? But at the same time, I mean, I'm not going to walk away from an awesome deal. So if I got to tie up some capital, I'm gonna tie up some capital.
Yeah.
But there was two trends that popped up. One, when Judy was talking about the different deals, right? You saw one went under budget, one went over budget, right? So it's like you're gonna have both happen, right? And it's great when you go under budget. I've had deals go on under budget. It is wonderful. But you're gonna have those ones where you get surprises because sometimes you don't know what's hiding behind the walls, right? It's
Mhm.
just like you don't get to open up walls when you do a walkthrough or inspection, right? So,
Right.
you factor that into your budget and, maybe that surprise is covered by the 10% extra you kind of put in as a buffer, right? So I think that's the point is that it's not about like bad things happening. It's about there's variables when you're doing
Right.
renovations, right? And then
100%.
also, she mentioned Cleveland, right? But what most people are not thinking about is, well, she's not from Ohio. She lives in New England. And it's like, oh, well, why go there, right? And, and I'm a poster child for that. I live in South Florida. I haven't invested in South Florida since 2017. Why? Because the deals are not really great here or tough to find. The numbers don't work. So
Right.
I'm out of state. So clearly Judy's now making that same move, right? Because sometimes you have to go where the deals are. And she's like, I want deals. And well, where I am, it's tough sledding. So where are the deals? And she found an area and now venturing into a
That's
new market
true.
and learning a new market, which has its own set of, variables, so to speak, and learning curve.
It definitely does, and I'll
Let's
tell you, like, I'm in Massachusetts, and all my investing has been in Rhode Island so far. So yeah, it's an hour and a half away, so it's not that far. I can drive it, but it was kind of good practice. Like, I feel like I had some practice in how to manage from a distance or how to manage when you can be there only for certain periods of time. So I don't feel like totally out of my element doing it. It's much different when you have to get on a plane or drive 10 hours, but at least I don't feel like it's totally brand new. And you're right, like the overage on the budget, people say put the 10 or 15%. I'm like, I put
Oh,
20%.
wow.
But for like the renovation, because I had such a fear of like that big thing happening again. But I mean, depending on the size of the deal, when they get bigger and bigger, I probably won't be able to do 20%. I'm talking like single families and stuff. I just feel like you can't have
20% is not
too
wrong.
much in the
That's a
budget.
good number. It can get there, and it's good to
Yeah.
know. It gets better as you know your inventory more, as you get more closely connected to a property, your inventory, the market. But
Right.
20% is a very good assessment, especially when you're jumping into a new inventory type or a new market. It can happen. It happens.
Yeah.
So you came out to Cleveland, and the first time you came out to Cleveland, you were really this was your first time in Cleveland. So you're experimenting. The second time you came out, you actually got to tour one of my buildings, a 42 unit. What was your experience actually walking those halls, seeing the building itself? How did that help kind of getting comfortable with Cleveland itself?
So it was really interesting that even though we talk about this all the time, you'll have a multifamily building and some of the units might be vacant and some of them might really require a lot more to turn versus some that's in a slightly better condition, the ABCD condition. Like if you have something that really only needs light work, you're going to turn that one first because you can get a tenant in it faster and have it making money faster. And the ones that are like D level, they need everything, got it, the whole thing, those you don't have to do right away as long as you have enough coming in from the other units. And the bigger the building is, the more units you have with money coming in. So you just really need the outside buttoned up, the common areas, and the ones you can rent up the fastest is the sequence, which is like so different than how you would look at creating and deploying a budget for renovating, maybe not creating, but deploying the budget for renovating on like a single family flip, for example, because you do the whole thing and you do it really nice. And it's a mindset shift. It's like you don't have to do the whole thing and it doesn't all have to be perfect. Like you can say that project I'm going to do in 2 years, but like right now, I'm going to make this really clean and fresh and have good light fixtures and have people come in and want to live here. But I may not do another upgrade somewhere else in the building. I may not put in the laundry units until 6 months from now or whatever it is. So it just reiterated like you can hear about it, but when you walk through and see it, you can say, oh yeah, that really makes a lot of sense to me. And in a way, it made it less scary to go into a building and think it all has to be done right away because that can be overwhelming, and I think that's just such a big mindset shift going into the apartment buildings.
That's cool because we have a laundry room in that building, or at least we have the capacity for a laundry
Hmm.
room in that building. And you saw, I was like, and we just closed the door, and nobody knows about a
Yep.
laundry room yet. It's not marketed to our tenants, but one day we'll say, hey, guys, laundry room's coming. We'll get it done in the next month. Here are the updates of what we're going to have available. And it creates excitement. And it also allows us to get a better tenant down the road as well. So
Right.
it's good that you got to come out and actually see it. So Judy,
Plus
one of the things
plus
that we
$1,000 every month for us. And my I have 6 unit in Newport, and we did that. There was nothing in the basement, and tenants asked for laundry, put in a hot water heater, and got the coin op. And now they use it all the 2 sets. And they use them all the time, and yeah, it pays for itself,
you
obviously.
should see ours, Mike. These are 6 laundries, six
Do
washers,
you do
stack them.
do you do credit card thing or
We do
whatever?
credit card.
Swipe
Yeah,
card? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's what I was
it's
that's
just gonna ask
easier.
you. I feel like
that's
that would be so
brilliant.
much easier.
Yeah, finding quarters. Oy, that's yeah.
Flashback to college right
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Exactly.
But it is a lot of fun to walk out of a building with a giant bucket,
Yeah.
5 gallon
Yes.
bucket of quarters.
You don't have to go to the gym that day. You just
Exactly.
lift your quarters. Yeah.
No, back in the day, I used to collect all the silver coins. So I would go
Yeah.
through all the quarters and
Oh, to
actually look
see
for
if
the
there
little
was a
silver
silver.
ones.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And
Actually, I will full disclosure, my partner is the one who picks up the coins. He shows them to me before he takes them to the bank and, cashes them in. So I still have to go to the gym. So there you go.
So Judy, if you could go back in time, we're gonna wrap this up. If you go back in time to your 20-year-old self, or even the advice you'd give your kids now, what 3 pieces of advice would you give a young real estate investor who's getting into this business so that they get to where you are, happier, healthier, richer, faster? And what component does that lending side actually bring, like, peace to your life? How did you, before we go into the 3 questions, let's talk a little bit about the lending side. So that's
Mhm.
something that's new to you. How did you get exposed to it? Why is that now a part of your component of your investment strategy? And what is it about that income that is different from, let's say, cash flow from a building or from doing the flips?
So the lending piece was really intriguing hearing about it because obviously I had used a hard money lender. So I was on the other side and I thought, well, it's way better to be that guy than to be paying that guy. So
Right.
when you talked about it, I thought, this is amazing. And again, was kind of thinking, oh, I have to get to X amount of money. But there was a point where had opportunities that people were talking about, could we lend, at smaller increments. So I was able to jump in and do that. And I was able to do it out of a self-directed IRA, which is another whole topic for a podcast, which would be amazing for people to talk about. But through the self-directed IRA, being able to use that and deploy that money and then have it just go right back in and grow that retirement. So now, outside of that, though, what I'm planning to do with this next step is a portion of what I invest in will be the properties, but I'm working on building up another line that will be not within my self-directed IRA that can be active income for me. So I have goals around um, property acquisition. I have goals around funds to be deployed as a private lender and just have that passive income coming in every month because that is part of like the path to freedom, right? Having the money come in where you're not even having to do anything and just be able to really have that money coming in and not worry about it. So I have
Where
goals like on both sides so that I
where
can grow that and then have the passive money coming in.
where did the idea of setting goals in all those areas come from? I mean, was that Gualter, or is that just something you've done your whole life, or
Well, I mean, I've always set goals, but setting them in this way with the balance of those two things is completely like from this community because that's one of the things that you went over in depth in one of our mastermind sessions. And I think even on a Saturday session, it really kind of gave specificity to it and just, tools to be able to say, let's put the visual on this and say, how much do you want to have in there? And be able to kind of keep that conversation alive because you can set a goal and then forget about it in a year, but if you're in a community where you're talking about it all the time
right?
and really visualizing, and people share what theirs are and Gualter shares like in the group, like this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm rebalancing right now. It just keeps it on the radar and you can't, you don't want to just walk away and forget about it. And that's what I think a lot of people do. If you're not constantly talking about it and in around surrounding yourself with people who are thinking about this, you can easily like set a goal and then six
Yeah.
months later be like, wait, what was that goal again?
Right.
you know.
I think in the simplest terms, one of the things that Gualter said that taught me is all the time he would say, how many people here want to double their net worth and double their income this year? And it was like, I've never been like a real goal setter, like write it down. But that one, just like you said, it was like every week he would say something to that effect. So you're sitting there going, whoa, these people are all doubling their net worth and doubling their income. I want to do that. Who doesn't want to do that, right? So if you keep thinking it, and actually when you hear it, I don't know about you, but with me, I was like, I could do this. I could definitely do this. I could I could double my income and double my net worth by next year, so yeah, it's awesome. Nice
I
job.
love
Thanks,
that.
Walter.
You're
Yeah.
very welcome,
Yes,
and I
thanks.
love seeing it. It's
Mm.
I look at it as when I think of doubling my income, I do look at the lending side because that's the easiest way for me
Mhm.
to increase income in a true like
For
passive
sure.
manner. And then when I look at increase my net worth, the active real estate is really the fastest, easiest, more leveraged way for me to get there. And to see that we've had that kind of impact within the community in your life, and obviously Mike, and believe
It's
it or not,
get
Mike, just
it's
saying
get
it
it's
for
getting
me,
it's getting a little trickier.
it gets trickier. It
I mean,
sure
maybe not
does.
the income. Yeah, I got that down, but the net worth, you start getting into some. You double your net worth when you're up there. It's awesome. Shoot
It,
shoot for the stars and land on the moon. How's that? Something like that. Yeah.
That is a statement. So thank you for sharing that insight into
Yeah.
the lending side, Judy. It's a space that a lot of people want to get into, but they don't really know how. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
entrepreneurs or real estate investors come in and think, okay, I've got to have a certain amount of money before I can convert everything over. But what I found and what we teach in the community is that you actually have to make that space available for yourself and set a goal annually to get there. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And it's the weirdest thing when you set the space, you actually find a way to make it happen. In fact, it helps you in everything else because now you're setting better goals that are more attainable, and that income actually helps create the freedom to go and do the other things. It's self-sustaining and it's counterintuitive because you'd think you need larger amounts to be able to get there, but you don't. You actually just have to set the capacity. The goals have to be
Gotcha.
set. And for some
Right.
reason, the mind will find ways to solve those. So going back to my final question, if you go back and tell your 20-year-old self, and I know it's tough sometimes because our 20-year-old self, mine was very brash and didn't take advice very well. But let's say you could go back and be very compelling or very convincing. What three pieces of advice do you wish you heard sooner from somebody you trust, like yourself, coming back and saying, do this so you can get your healthier, wealthier, better relationships and faster? What three pieces of advice would you give to somebody right now?
So the first one, I would say, don't wait to invest until you think you have enough money. You actually have to flip it and, save more than you think and invest right away because small money becomes big money, taking advantage of that compounding. Um, I would say instead of renting an apartment, if you can find a way to buddy up with somebody and get in a duplex, let somebody else pay half your mortgage, whatever it is, because it's more doable than you think, especially as a primary residence. It doesn't need to be a ton, and sometimes parents will help out, or sometimes that's your savings goal, whatever it is, right? It can be done. And then lastly, just be pretend that you aren't getting a raise every year for the first 5 years that you're working, and just sock that away. Make it automated. Automating kind of goes along with the whole money thing. Like automate everything, set the percentages and forget them. The percentages that we all talk about, not just for your saving and your spending and your investing, but your, giving, and just having your percentages set and automate it. And now that everyone has multiple deposits, they can pick, multiple direct deposits, they can pick on their, paycheck direct deposit if they have a regular job. That's doable right away, and it doesn't hurt because you don't see it.
That's
So that's what
awesome.
I would want. That's what I want my kids to do. I'm setting them up with percentages, and I've already told them multiple times, like looking for duplexes and triplexes for when you graduate and when you're not going to live with me anymore, so that you're in something that makes sense,
What
and
it,
then learn how
I,
this works.
I got a question about that. So because I've heard anything from live on 90% to some people really say they're only living on 50%. So what's your percentage of how much you're socking away versus what you're spending on living?
So right now, I'm probably still living on like 70%. I would love to
Nice
bring that
job.
number down.
Yeah.
Um, I'd love to bring that number down. I'd love to
Yeah.
have the necessities down to 60 or 50, but right now it's really 70. So working on that, I did bring it down quite a bit, moving out of my primary residence, which is in a much bigger house in the town over from where I am now, and I'm renting that out. And I rented a
Nice.
small little beach house because both kids are in college. I don't need a lot of room right now.
And what about the kids? Like, what do you tell them?
So because they're not going to have any real huge expenses,
Yeah.
they should start off at like 50, 50.
Yeah.
You know, especially living here, even more if you can. My son will probably come out and flip it and be like, yeah, I'm going to spend 30% and I'm going to invest my 70. you
Nice.
know?
Nice
So-
job.
Judy just shared something that a lot of people don't understand. So by moving out of her house, her primary residence that had a shit ton of equity in it, she became an accredited investor simply by moving out.
Amazing.
This is a game. Like there was so much equity sitting in that property. The second she
Yeah.
moved out, it was no longer her primary residence. Boom, she became an accredited
Because
investor.
I actually think a lot of people forget that part of the rule, Walter, that when you talk about if you have $1 million in net worth that you can't include your primary residence. So yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yep.
And it brings
Absolutely.
the monthly expenses down too, you know, so it allows me to bring that necessities percentage down.
And going back to the percentages, there's three main core philosophies that I talk about a lot. So the 70% living off of that's actually the richest man in Babylon philosophy. Is 70%, 20% goes to paying off debts, and then 10% is that kind of save for a rainy day, save for investment. That is you're in that equation. Then you've got the 50%. That's the T. Harv Eker philosophy of you're aiming your kids to go to the 50% necessities, and then the rest goes to these different accounts. And then there's the Uber crazy investment. That's where they live off of 10%. That's the Grant Cardone model, where it's like, dude, 90% goes to investment. I'm living off of 10%, but that comes from ultra high income.
Couch surfing. You own like 3 multifamilies, but you're staying on your buddy's couch.
Whatever it takes.
Ridiculous, like condensed back. Everything goes into investments.
That's awesome.
That's the best advice for the 20-year-old self.
Incredible.
Do that in your 20s because you're much more prone and willing to do it in your 20s than when you're in your
So true.
like. I had roommates in my 20s and early 30s. Like I was in my 40s and someone like kind of pitched the like whole room, hey, any chance you want to rent? I'm like, no, my second bedroom is my office. Like I'm in my 40s. I don't want a roommate. Like
That's so true. Yeah, you can put up with a lot when you're used to being broke anyway at that age. You might as well just live that way a little longer and sock it away.
Right. And the other one that a lot of kids are doing, especially this generation, is just staying home. Stay with your parents, do all this kind of stuff and save your money, sock it away because you got a fridge full of food and you got free bed, I ask me how I know.
I mean, listen.
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now.
I'm about to know.
Yeah, there's truth
It's
to
nice.
this.
It's nice.
It is, yeah.
I didn't get that option, but luckily I had a lot of friends whose family were like family, so I would go over there for dinner a lot because I mean, that's the thing. Like
Mitch is 6'4", eats the whole fridge.
luckily, my 3 good friends growing up were the same height, if not taller.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, the reality is like that is a smart play, and it's just like, and sometimes you don't have that option. It's like anyone can do it because the reality is like I was out on my own at 18, like and
Yeah.
renting rooms and staying, at college, and then when I was home from college, figuring out where I was going to stay, and so anybody can do it, and it's just if you're willing to when you're younger, kind of grind and put in that time. Like I always lived beneath my income. And I mean, part of that was growing up maybe so poor, I was just used to it. So when I started making money, it was easy to stay the same. So that allowed me to stack money, right, to eventually start investing and even the old school way, like literally saving money for down payment. So there's
quick little aside. I did a closing with Mitch and his partner Tim, who is one of his friends from Young, where he said that he's about the same size. And so I'm 5'8", but I'm standing between the two of you. You can't even see me in the picture because they're so tall.
Mike's in the middle. It's pretty funny.
They're very tall.
If you didn't know Mike, you'd be looking at him like, is he a midget?
Yeah, when I take pictures with Mitch and Tim, I take a different angle at
Yeah,
it. So I
smart
take
man.
the camera, I put it down there,
Smart
so we
man.
look about the same height. I'm like 3 feet in front of them.
I just kept saying I'm going to be the point guard, you know.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, Judy, I've got a panel for you at the summit where I have women who have begun investing in real estate as solo entrepreneurs who are raising kids themselves, who raised their children already, are now going in and investing almost in this second life. So, I'm glad to have you at the summit. It's a very cool panel. One of the things that our community is starting to acknowledge is that there's a lot of single family home investors who've built up decent portfolios around the single family space, but are starting to get tapped out. They're stressed and they're not hitting the rewards or the returns that they should be hitting with the amount of years they've spent in the business. So at the summit this year, we're going to talk a lot more about how to get comfortable with multifamily. We're going to talk about the different benefits and tax strategies and the management benefits of actually having things vertically integrated. So very excited to have you on the panel in the summit live. This is your first summit. You've never attended before. So you've got a lot of things you're going to run into. Right now, there's 59 people registered. That usually is our halfway point. So when we're 30 days out, we know that that's about the halfway of people who are going to be attending. I have it hard capped at 100 people. So we're closing up shop on who's going to be there. If you had somebody you wanted to invite, because I know you're looking for somebody to come with you and be a part of your team, what does the ideal partner for you look like over these next 2-3 years?
That's a great question. I would say, obviously they have to have the growth mindset and be very, I would say, meticulous with follow through, and the mindset of being willing to make quick decisions, think on your feet, have the right decision, have the right, information in front of you, and be willing to disagree on things. I think that's important. Skill set wise, I think, somebody who really wants to work with, I would really split it up anyway at this point. Somebody who really wants to either work with overseeing the operations versus the acquisitions. I think it would just depend on who has the greater strength in whichever area it is, because right now I'm doing everything. So it depends on who I come across with, but it's really more important to me that we can work well together and then we can divide up the work, and I don't have like one big area that I'm dying to get rid of. I just want to have the right mindset in this person, and the person who's willing to do whatever we need to do to get things done, and who will make decisions and execute on things quickly and do what they said they were going to do.
Awesome.
Good enough for me. Impeccable with their word, capable of taking down the projects, being able to solve things before they become a real problem. This is also Judy Walsh. If somebody wants to get in touch with you before the summit, what is the easiest way to get in touch with you? How can you be found?
Probably, you would think I would know my Instagram and all my
How will
things,
the
but I
people
really
stalk
don't even know
you?
them. So I would just say Instagram probably, and I am Judy Walsh 13 on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way.
Cool.
Awesome. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be at the summit October 23rd to the 27th. The link is summit.alchemiststation.com. Find Judy online, ask her what success tips she has, and maybe there's a partner out there waiting to get jammed into the summit with us to level up. Michael Schein, the point is not to work, it's to generate income, but why do we do it all?
Well, again, this is just me personally, not financial advice. But I just I've been an attorney for a long time, and although I love my job, I just was so enamored by passive income. So I'll keep saying it, massive income from passive income, and I hope it doesn't get too sing-songy so that I lose the meaning of that, because it's super important that I want to have a ton of income, but I just want it to come in passively. And I feel like if I keep saying that, I can see it happening. So that's a long way of saying massive income from passive income. So yeah.
I love it. Mitch, how do we, in a very long way, say how we get there?
Yeah, totally.
You have to organize multiple streams of passive income,
Nice.
and then every month you collect those checks.
Oh yeah. Wait, so does Judy, maybe you have something that you live by, like a credo or something. Do you got something? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
What's a
See,
phrase, first phrase that comes to your mind that has been a guiding principle or something that you're manifesting or bringing into your life?
You're a witch with a timeline.
Yeah,
She's
be
been
on
branded.
time. Be on time. It's going on the market on this day. I think deadlines are huge for me. I don't have a little saying that goes with it, but I'm
Yes.
staring at
That's right.
something that's
Yeah.
on my laptop right now, that's on my monitor, and I look at it every day. It says, the minute you get comfortable, you have stopped growing. So that's in my face every day. And
Nice
I can tell
job.
you that I'm actually really kind of uncomfortable, not here with you guys, but I'm kind of really uncomfortable with this. Like, I'm excited, but I'm
Okay.
like, ooh, this is really something, and this is really happening, So, and this is
Yeah.
where sometimes you can talk yourself out of things and say, well, nobody
Sure.
knows I'm doing this. I could just not do it. That goes through your mind. And I'm like, no, this is happening. But if you're not comfortable, you're not growing.
Yeah,
And I think
that's one of my favorites is similar to where you're going is everything you ever wanted is just beyond your comfort zone.
it totally is.
So
And people can
yeah.
say they want to be uncomfortable, but then when you start to be uncomfortable, that
Yeah.
little voice in your head will come in. And similar to all these mantras and things, what you're listening to in your mind, like what you're saying to yourself, and who you're listening to that influences you is another big thing that
So
I put a lot
true.
of focus
So
on.
true.
So that really helps with that.
That's why I
Doing
hang
it.
out with Mitch and Gualter and Judy
Yep.
too. There we
I hear
go.
you. It's definitely it's the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah. So cool.
In that case, the point is not to work, it's to generate income. This has been the Alchemist Nation Podcast with myself, Gualter Amarelo, Mitch Jaworski, Michael Schein, and thank you, Judy, for being our
Thank
guest
you,
today.
Judy.
Thank you for
Cheers to
having
your
me.
success. When you have a choice, always work with the best. Remember, there's plenty of room at the top. I'll see you at the summit. See you guys.